On a distant planet far from Earth, humans and aliens had been at odds for many years. The alien species, the Zirans, were known for their strength, intelligence, and advanced technology. For centuries, they had looked down on humans as primitive beings. But now a moment of peace was being attempted. A delegation of humans, including Captain Thorn, had arrived on Zira to discuss a fragile peace treaty. Captain Thorn, tall, strong, and brave, was a military leader with a reputation for being calm under pressure. He had been chosen for this mission due to his sharp mind and diplomatic skills, qualities that had earned him respect on both Earth and within the human fleet. Despite the tensions, Thorn remained hopeful that the peace talks could succeed. As Thorn and his team made their way through the grand hall of the alien palace, he couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation. The Ziran leaders were not known for their hospitality toward humans. But today the stakes were higher than ever. If this treaty failed, it could mean the beginning of a war between Earth and the Zirans. Princess Niara, the ruler of the Ziran people, stood at the center of the room, her regal presence commanding the attention of all those present. Tall and graceful, she was the embodiment of strength and elegance. Her sharp eyes scanned the room, her gaze settling briefly on Captain Thorn. For a moment their eyes locked and an unexpected feeling stirred within Niara. A flicker of curiosity, perhaps even something more. She had heard of Captain Thorn, of course. The humans had made quite an impression in the galaxy over the years, with their bravery and relentless will to survive. Niara, however, had never expected to meet one face to face. She had always been taught to see them as less than her own people. But now, standing in the same room as the human captain, she was forced to reconsider. Thorn, for his part, felt something shift in the air when their eyes met. He had seen many leaders in his time, but there was something different about Niara. Her presence was powerful, and despite her alien beauty and strength, there was something undeniably human about her. But he quickly pushed the thought aside. This mission was about peace, not personal emotions. The peace talks began, but it wasn't long before things took a dangerous turn. Suddenly, without warning, the palace was attacked. Hostile Ziran factions, who opposed the peace treaty, launched an assault on the building. The room erupted into chaos, with soldiers rushing in from all sides. The human delegation was caught off guard, and Thorn immediately shouted for his team to follow him. Niara, too, reacted swiftly. Her training and instincts as a leader kicked in. She reached for her weapon, prepared to defend herself and her people. But as the fighting grew more intense, it became clear that the attackers were too many. The chaos was overwhelming. Thorn and Niara found themselves trapped together in the palace's grand chamber, surrounded by enemies on all sides. "We need to escape," Thorn shouted, his voice strong and commanding. Niara nodded, her sharp eyes scanning the room for an exit. "This way," she ordered, pointing toward a nearby hidden passageway. Thorn followed her without hesitation, his trust in her instincts growing by the second. They moved quickly, staying low as blasts of energy rang out around them. It was clear that they were running out of time. Their only chance for survival was to escape the palace, but the path to safety was anything but certain. As they sprinted through the narrow corridors, Niara glanced over her shoulder at Thorn. His face was determined, but there was something else in his eyes, something that gave her a strange sense of comfort amidst the danger. She had always believed that humans were weak and insignificant, but here was a human who was fighting with all his strength to protect her and her people. It was a sight that confused her. How could someone like Thorn care about the Ziran people at all? They reached a dead-end corridor, and Thorn immediately took action. With a swift motion, he moved a large piece of rubble blocking the way, revealing a secret door hidden in the wall. "This way," he said, his voice calm even as the world around them seemed to fall apart. Niara nodded, following him into the dark passage. The door slid shut behind them, blocking out the sounds of the battle. They found themselves in a small, dimly lit room deep within the palace's underground chambers. Thorn quickly checked the door to make sure it was secure and then turned to Niara. "We're safe for now," he said, panting slightly from the exertion. Niara looked at him, her expression unreadable. "I don't understand," she said softly. "Why are you helping me? Your people are the enemy. You should want to see me fall." Thorn met her gaze, his voice steady. "I don't fight for enemies, Niara. I fight for peace. And right now, that means protecting you and anyone who stands for peace." His words struck Niara deeply. She had never thought of humans this way before. They had always been seen as a threat, lesser beings who had no place in the galaxy. But Thorn was different. In this moment, he wasn't just a human. He was a warrior, someone who fought for something greater than himself. "You're different from what I was told," she said, her voice quieter now. "I never thought I would say this, but I'm glad you're here." Thorn didn't know how to respond to that, so he simply nodded. The situation was far from over. They still had to escape, and they had no idea what awaited them outside this room. But for the first time, Thorn felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, peace wasn't as impossible as he had once thought. But as they sat in the quiet of the underground chamber, waiting for the next move, neither of them could shake the growing connection between them. It was undeniable. And Niara couldn't help but wonder if this was a bond she was meant to have, whether it was with a human or not. The chapter ended with the two of them sharing a quiet moment of uncertainty, each wondering what the future held, but both unwilling to let go of the strange, magnetic force that had drawn them together. As Captain Thorn and Princess Niara sat in the dimly lit underground chamber, the weight of their circumstances pressed heavily on them. The sounds of battle echoed faintly from above, a reminder that the war was not over and their lives were still at risk. But in this small, quiet space, they found a moment of peace, an unexpected reprieve in the chaos. Niara leaned against the wall, her sharp eyes watching Thorn as he paced back and forth, trying to come up with a plan. He was always in motion, always thinking, and it both amazed and unsettled her. How could a human, someone she had been taught to view as beneath her, be so calm, so strategic? His presence had a strange effect on her, one that she couldn't quite explain. It was as if something deep inside her was pulling her toward him, something beyond reason, beyond logic. Thorn, for his part, couldn't stop thinking about Niara either. She was unlike anyone he had ever met. Her strength, her intelligence, and her beauty were all undeniable. But there was more to her. He saw it in her eyes when she spoke, the vulnerability hidden behind the mask of the powerful leader. Thorn had always believed in the possibility of peace, but with Niara, it felt as if that possibility was more than just a dream. It felt real. "You're quiet," Niara finally said, breaking the silence. Her voice was soft, almost uncertain. "You haven't said much since we got here." "Are you always so calm?" Thorn paused and turned to face her. His expression was serious, but there was a hint of warmth in his eyes. "I've learned that in moments like this, the best thing to do is stay calm. Panicking won't help either of us." Niara nodded, but she couldn't help but feel a sense of admiration for him. How was it that he, a human, could face danger with such calm determination? She had spent her entire life training to be a leader, to never show weakness, yet here she was, struggling with her own emotions. The connection between them, something she hadn't asked for or even understood, was growing stronger with each passing moment. As they continued to wait in the underground chamber, Thorn checked their equipment. The communication devices were still down, and they had no way of contacting the outside world. The plan had been simple: escape the palace, regroup with their forces, and figure out the next step. But now everything felt uncertain. Niara could feel the tension in the air, the sense that they were running out of time. "You're thinking about the treaty, aren't you?" Niara asked, her voice breaking through Thorn's thoughts. He looked up, surprised by her insight. "I was, but I'm also thinking about us. About how we got here." Niara raised an eyebrow, not sure what he meant. "We got here because you saved me," she said, her voice steady but with an underlying trace of uncertainty. Thorn shook his head. "No, that's not what I mean. I mean, the way we're connected now. It's not just because we were thrown together by circumstances. There's something more between us, something I don't understand." Niara felt a sudden rush of heat in her chest. His words struck a chord deep within her. She had been trying to ignore it, trying to deny the pull she felt toward him. But the truth was undeniable. There was something between them, something that went beyond the physical. She had always been taught that alien species could never truly understand one another, but with Thorn it felt different. It felt like something was awakening inside her, a bond she hadn't expected and wasn't ready for. "I don't know what to think about it," Niara admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "I've spent my whole life fighting for my people, for my planet. I never thought I'd be in a position where I would need to rely on a human. But here we are in this room together and—" She trailed off, unsure how to finish her thought. The words seemed impossible to say, even though she had been feeling them for a while. The connection she shared with Thorn was stronger than anything she had ever known. It made her question everything she had believed about herself, about her people, and about humans. "You don't have to understand it all right now," Thorn said gently, his voice calm and reassuring. "I don't fully understand it either, but I know that we're stronger together. You and me. Maybe that's all we need to know." Nyara met his gaze, her heart pounding in her chest. Thorn was right. They didn't have all the answers. They didn't know what the future held, but in this moment they were united. The bond between them was undeniable. And despite her fear and hesitation, Nyara couldn't ignore it any longer. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed from the passageway outside. Both Thorn and Nyara froze, their senses heightened. The quiet was broken, and the reality of their situation came crashing back into focus. They were still in danger. Thorn's hand instinctively went to the weapon at his side, but Nyara stopped him with a firm hand on his arm. "Wait," she whispered, her voice low. "Let me go first." He looked at her, surprised by her confidence. But he nodded, trusting her judgment. After all, she was the leader of her people, and in this moment she had proven herself to be more than capable. Nyara motioned for Thorn to stay behind her as she crept toward the door. The sounds from the passageway grew louder, and she could sense the presence of someone or something approaching. Her heart raced, but she pushed the fear aside. She had been trained for moments like this. With a swift movement, Nyara opened the door, peering into the dimly lit corridor. She motioned for Thorn to follow, and they slipped out of the chamber, moving silently down the hall. The tension between them was palpable, but it was no longer just the danger they faced that held their attention. It was the connection they shared, the unspoken bond that had formed between them. As they made their way through the palace, Nyara couldn't help but glance at Thorn from time to time. He was right beside her, his presence reassuring, even though their lives were still at risk. She had never imagined this, never imagined that a human could make her feel this way. But here she was, trusting him with her life, and for the first time it felt right. They reached a large chamber at the end of the hall, and Nyara motioned for Thorn to stop. She held up a hand, signaling for silence. In the distance, she could hear footsteps approaching. They were getting closer. "Stay close," she whispered. Thorn nodded, his hand ready on his weapon, but for a moment he didn't reach for it. Instead, he placed a hand on Nyara's shoulder, offering her a silent reassurance. Their eyes met, and for a brief second they were both reminded of the growing bond between them, one that couldn't be ignored. Captain Thorn and Princess Nyara had moved through the dark corridors of the palace with careful precision. The tension between them had thickened as they continued to sneak past guards and through narrow hallways, each step bringing them closer to safety. They both knew time was running out. The palace was under attack, and if they didn't find a way to escape soon, they could both be trapped forever. Despite the danger surrounding them, Nyara couldn't ignore the strange, powerful connection she now felt toward Thorn. It had started as a flicker of curiosity, just a moment of unexpected understanding, but now it was undeniable. She trusted him, in a way that she had never trusted anyone before, and there was something else, something she couldn't put into words. It wasn't just the way he fought for her, or the way he cared about her people. It was something deeper, something that was growing stronger with every passing minute. As they reached a small hidden chamber deep within the palace, Nyara motioned for Thorn to stay silent. She had known of this room from her childhood, hidden beneath layers of the palace designed as a safe haven in case of an emergency. It was their best chance for refuge. "We're safe here, for now," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of her racing heartbeat. Thorn nodded, but his mind was still racing. The battle outside was growing fiercer, and they had no idea how long they could stay hidden. But for now, the quiet of the room offered a brief moment of peace. He took a deep breath, allowing himself to relax, even if just for a moment. Nyara looked at him, her gaze softening. "You saved my life," she said quietly. "You didn't have to. You could have left, but you didn't." Thorn's eyes met hers, and for the first time since their journey began, he allowed himself to really see her, truly see her. She was more than just a leader, more than just the princess of Sira. She was strong, yes, but beneath that strength was someone who was just as vulnerable as he was. I couldn't leave you, he said simply, his voice steady but filled with emotion. We're in this together whether we like it or not. Nyara felt something stir deep within her at his words. She had never been one to let others in, never one to rely on anyone. As a leader, she had always carried the weight of her people's survival on her shoulders. But with Thorn, something was different. She had allowed him in, and now she could feel the consequences of that decision. The bond between them was not just a fleeting emotion. It was something that transcended her understanding, something more profound than she could explain. And now, as they stood there in the quiet, she couldn't help but wonder what the future would hold. Would this connection change everything? Could it? I didn't expect this, Nyara said softly, her voice filled with uncertainty. I never imagined that a human could make me feel this way. Thorn stepped closer to her, his hand gently reaching for hers. I never imagined it either, he admitted. But sometimes the unexpected happens, and maybe that's a good thing. For a moment they stood there in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Nyara knew that her feelings for Thorn were complicated. She was torn between the duty she had to her people and the growing affection she felt for him. But as she looked into his eyes, she realized that this was not something she could ignore. This bond between them was real, and it was something they both had to face. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed through the hallway outside, pulling them both from their thoughts. Nyara's senses sharpened, and she motioned for Thorn to follow her. We can't stay here. We have to keep moving. Thorn nodded, and together they slipped out of the room, moving quickly and silently through the palace. The halls were dim, and the sounds of the ongoing battle grew louder as they approached the main entrance. As they neared the exit, Nyara paused, her heart pounding in her chest. Thorn, she said, her voice shaking slightly. I don't know what will happen next. The war, my people. I know, Thorn interrupted gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. But whatever happens, we face it together. Nyara's eyes met his, and for the first time she truly understood the meaning of his words. Together. They would face whatever came next, not as enemies but as allies, bound by something deeper than politics or war. They made their way to the palace's outer walls, where a small ship awaited them. It was their only chance to escape the palace and avoid the worst of the conflict. As they boarded the ship, Nyara felt a strange sense of relief wash over her. For the first time in what felt like forever, she wasn't alone. The ship lifted off from the ground, breaking free from the chaos below. As they soared into the sky, Nyara looked out the window, her mind swirling with conflicting thoughts. She had always believed that her duty came first, that her people's survival was the only thing that mattered. But now, with Thorn beside her, she realized that maybe there was more to life than just duty. Maybe, just maybe, there was something worth fighting for, something worth living for. As the ship flew further into the distance, Thorn turned to her. We're not out of danger yet, Nyara, but we have a chance now. A chance to make things right. Nyara nodded, her heart heavy but hopeful. I know, she said. And maybe, just maybe, we can change the future. Not just for my people, but for both of our worlds. The journey ahead would not be easy. There would be obstacles, enemies to face, and battles to fight. But Nyara and Thorn had something that could never be taken away, each other. And no matter what the future held, they would face it together. As the ship sped toward the horizon, the unknown ahead of them seemed less daunting. For the first time, Nyara didn't feel afraid. She felt hopeful. And in that moment, she realized that no matter how difficult the path ahead, love and unity were stronger than any divide.